The morning mist hung heavy over the ancient land of Sussex, shrouding the coast in a veil of mystery. But beneath this peaceful facade, a storm was brewing. It was the year 1066, and the world was about to change forever. The quiet shores of Pevensey would soon be the stage for one of the most pivotal moments in English history, the arrival of William, Duke of Normandy, and his formidable army. Today, if you stand at Pevensey Castle, the scene might seem tranquil, almost mundane. The vast lagoon that once dominated the landscape has long since vanished, replaced by the modern levels. But in 1066, this area was a watery wonderland, a complex ecosystem of islands, marshes, and tidal flats. It was a place of great natural wealth and strategic importance, a perfect setting for an invasion. The Normans arrived not as brutal invaders, but as shrewd tacticians. They knew the land well, having spent months, if not years, gathering intelligence. The lagoon at Pevensey was their key to success. It provided a natural harbor, safe from the unpredictable autumn weather, and a fortress that was almost impregnable. The ancient Roman fort of Anderida, perched on a spit of land, offered a secure base from which to launch their campaign. The landscape around Pevensey was a mix of fertile farmland and rich wetlands. To the north, the land was dotted with small farms and villages, their fields lush and productive. The people here were not mere peasants, but skilled farmers, fishermen, and salt makers. They knew the land and the sea intimately, and their knowledge would prove invaluable to the Normans. As the Normans landed, they found a community that was not entirely hostile. Some locals, perhaps sensing the winds of change, chose to collaborate. The port of Pevensey, which had been a bustling hub of trade and commerce, saw its population more than double in the years following the invasion. This growth was not just a result of the Normans' military might, but also their ability to integrate with the local population. The Normans' first priority was to secure their beachhead. They moved quickly to establish a provisioning point along the waterways, where supplies could be easily transported between Pevensey and the inland areas. The river systems, with their tidal reaches, allowed the Normans to penetrate deep into the hinterland, bringing them closer to their ultimate goal, the defeat of King Harold and the conquest of England. The area around Battle, where the decisive clash would take place, was a patchwork of reclaimed land and fertile fields. The Wealden Forest to the north provided timber and iron, essential resources for the Normans' war effort. The local inhabitants, many of whom were tenant farmers, would have seen the Normans as both a threat and an opportunity. Those who chose to side with the invaders were rewarded, while others suffered the consequences of resistance. The Normans' strategy was not just military, but also economic. They recognized the value of the land and the people who worked it. The Domesday Book, compiled in 1086, would later reveal the extent of the Normans' land grab and the economic reorganization of the region. The book detailed the fisheries, salt houses, and arable lands that had been so crucial to the Normans' success. As the Normans consolidated their hold on the region, they transformed the landscape. The wetlands that had once been a barrier became a resource, and the fertile fields to the north continued to feed the growing population. The old order was giving way to a new one, and the Normans were at the helm. The invasion of 1066 was not just a military conquest, but a complex interplay of politics, economics, and local collaboration. The Normans' success was built on their ability to understand and manipulate the landscape, to win the hearts and minds of the locals, and to establish a new order that would shape the future of England. The story of Pevensey and the surrounding lands is a testament to the power of strategic planning and the enduring impact of the Norman invasion. William was a smart commander who didn't underestimate his enemies. The English were known for their skills in battle, and William knew he had to be cautious. After his initial landing in 1066, he might have built another castle at Hastings in 1069 to secure his position. However, the castle at Anderida, modern Pevensey, was still very important. William might have known about a strong and loyal garrison there, or he might have decided to double-lock the back door to England after Eustace of Boulogne tried to take over Dover. It wouldn't have been wise for William to leave any opportunities for others to do what he had done. The area around Pevensey and the Weald was rich in resources, and the landscape was heavily used. The Domesday Book, a survey of England's land and resources, shows that the land was almost fully utilized, with very little left fallow. This suggests that the area was important for its industries, which were probably valuable. Harold, the English king, chose his battlefield near the Weald, likely to protect these industries. The Romans had built Anderida to protect their own industries in the Weald, and by 1066, these industries were still significant. Eustace of Boulogne, who controlled much of the cross-channel trade, might have known about these industries and the weaknesses in the English defenses. He might have known about the salt trade and the royal stud on the Downs. Eustace's importance in the invasion planning might have been overlooked, but he was likely a key player. The Pevensey Lagoon in 1066 was a unique place, similar to the Camargue in southern France, which was known for its salt production. The Camargue had a history of salt production dating back to Roman times, and it was still a major producer in the 11th century. The Camargue also had flamingos, which appear in the Bayeux Tapestry. This suggests that the Pevensey Lagoon might have had similar economic and ecological significance. On the morning of September 28, 1066, as dawn broke over the Pevensey Lagoon, Duke William's ship, the Mora, was alone on the sea. William enjoyed a hearty breakfast while waiting for the rest of his fleet to catch up. By 9 a.m., the shepherd on Commet Hill saw a large fleet approaching. The sight must have been awe-inspiring, with hundreds of ships racing into Pevensey Harbor. For the local inhabitants, the arrival of the Normans changed everything. The weapons and armor used in 1066 are crucial to understanding the battle. The Bayeux Tapestry shows that Norman and Saxon soldiers wore similar armor, including mail hauberks and helmets. This suggests that both sides fought in similar ways, but the Normans had a significant advantage: heavy cavalry. The Normans had developed a breed of horse that could carry a heavily armored rider and move quickly. These horses were expensive and required intensive training. William's emphasis on heavy cavalry was a key part of his strategy, as it allowed for rapid, powerful attacks. The Normans also had a strong archery force, which was not common among the English. The English used archers for skirmishing, but the Normans brought a large number of archers and possibly crossbows. The crossbow was a powerful weapon that required minimal training but could be deadly. The Normans had to bring a significant amount of arrows and quarrels, which added to their baggage train. When William faced Harold's army at Caldbeck Hill, he was in a difficult position. He needed to engage the English on their chosen ground, and he couldn't bypass them due to the terrain and the size of Harold's force. Despite the challenges, William's emphasis on heavy cavalry and archery gave him an edge in the battle. The Normans' heavy cavalry and archery were essential to their success. The horses were specially bred and trained, and the archers provided powerful fire support. William's strategy was to use these forces to break through the English lines and achieve a decisive victory. The Battle of 1066 was a turning point, and the arrival of the Normans at Pevensey marked the beginning of a new era in English history. The Bayeux Tapestry is a rich tapestry that brings to life the weapons and armor of the time, especially the various types of spearheads. These spearheads are not all the same, and they tell us a lot about the tools of war and hunting used by the people depicted. Near the beginning of the tapestry, we see Guy's escort carrying spears with long blades that have collars at their base. Some of these spears have shorter, stouter blades. When Guy is seated and William's messengers are with him, the spears have barbed heads with 1, 2, or 3 short bars at the base. One spear even has a longer blade with 2 unequal bars. These spears with barbs and stops were probably used for hunting, but they could also be used in war. They might have been included in the tapestry to show that the negotiations were peaceful. During the expedition against Conan, the spears have simpler points, with or without stops. Both the English and the Normans use barbed spearheads. The Norman quartermaster's wagon that loads the invasion fleet has these barbed spears, which seem to be on short shafts. At the Battle of Hastings, the English use a variety of spearheads, including barbed with stops, and plain leaf-shaped ones. The Normans, however, favor leaf, diamond, and pyramid-shaped spearheads for combat. Some historians describe the English carrying bundles of short, barbed spears as using javelins. These spears are similar to Roman javelins, designed to unbalance and encumber an opponent's shield, making them vulnerable. The barbs on these spears prevented them from being pulled out, while the stop bars stopped them from penetrating too deeply. The shorter spearheads were designed to pierce armor, and could be quickly withdrawn and reused. The longer bladed spears in the tapestry are similar to earlier Saxon forms. They might have been used like the Japanese naginata, spun rapidly between the fingers of one hand, which could be intimidating but impractical in close formation fighting. The stopped forms of spearheads held enemies back and prevented them from climbing up the shaft. These spearheads are also seen in other contexts, and are the ancestors of later medieval boar spears. The Norman heavy cavalry favored small pointed spears that allowed them to maintain movement and speed, making it easier to withdraw the spear after a strike. This was important for maintaining their momentum and preventing the spear from bending when used against mail armor. The long-bladed swords used by the Normans were similar to the Roman spatha and the Sudanese casquera. These swords were designed for reach, and the weight of the blade improved downward strikes. The Normans primarily used their swords for slashing, not thrusting. The heavy, long-handled axes seen in the tapestry, especially those used by the Huscarls' elite warriors, are distinct from the slim felling axes used by woodsmen. The technique for using these axes would have been different, and the needle workers who created the tapestry clearly knew the difference between these tools. The same is true for the spears. The needle workers understood the difference between a hunting spear, a javelin, and a horseman's spear. The best troops on both sides wore mail armor, which was made from interlinked metal rings. The quality of mail varied, with the finest being made from small, riveted rings. Most mail was made from softer, wrought iron wire, which was easier to work with. Mail provided protection against slashes, but a heavy blow could still break bones. Soldiers often wore a padded jacket under the mail to absorb impacts and reduce the weight. Mail shirts were expensive and were often reused by stripping them from the dead. The conical helmets with nasals, nose guards, were common among the armored soldiers. These helmets were designed to deflect downward blows to the sides, protecting the head and face. However, the iron rim of the helmet could still cause skull fractures. The nasal guard was crucial for preventing bloody and disorienting nose injuries. Some soldiers wore additional bindings on their chests, which might have been used to hold the mail in place and reduce drag. Rare forms of armor, such as squamated scale armor and lamellar armor, are also seen in the tapestry. Squamated armor made from overlapping scales offered better protection against slashes, but was vulnerable to upward thrusts. Lamellar armor, made from overlapping plates, was more flexible and resistant to upward thrusts. These armors were likely from the eastern Mediterranean and required specialized knowledge to construct. Bows and archers played a crucial role in William's victory at Hastings. The crossbow, or arbalist, was a particularly effective weapon that could shoot bolts with significant force. The crossbow was relatively easy to use and could be aimed accurately, making it dangerous at close range. The English were not familiar with this weapon, which gave the Normans an advantage. The archers used a combination of crossbows and ordinary bows to create a deadly barrage of arrows and bolts. The stirrups shown in the tapestry are a significant detail. Stirrups provided stability and allowed riders to increase the force of their sword strikes. They also made the use of the lance more effective, especially in a deep saddle with a high cantle and pommel. Presence of stirrups in the tapestry confirms that the scenes are contemporary and not based on ancient Roman documents, as stirrups were a recent innovation in 1066. The Bayeux Tapestry is a detailed and accurate record of the weapons and armor of the time, reflecting the knowledge and expertise of the people who created it. It shows that the warriors depicted were familiar with a wide range of military tools and tactics, and that the tapestry itself is a valuable historical document. When we think about the Bayeux Tapestry, we often overlook two important aspects: the logic behind its creation and the psychology of those who made it and those who viewed it. These aspects are crucial for understanding what the tapestry means and why it was made. To understand the tapestry logically, we need to consider the objects depicted on it. Some people argue that the buildings, clothing, and tools shown are inaccurate or imaginary. If this were true, then the entire story the tapestry tells would be unreliable. After all, why would anyone create a tapestry that doesn't accurately represent the world they knew? This logic suggests that the objects in the tapestry must be real and recognizable to the people of that time. Just as we rely on physical evidence in museums to understand history, the objects in the tapestry are meant to be truthful representations of the world in 1066. The psychology of the tapestry can be approached from two angles: the psychology of the original users and the psychology of modern interpreters. The original users of the tapestry lived in a very different world from ours. They had no maps, no aerial views, and no concept of spatial perspective. For them, the tapestry was a way to tell a story that was important to their society. They didn't need landscapes or detailed backgrounds because the focus was on the action and the people involved. The tapestry is filled with everyday objects that were familiar to the people of 1066. These objects, such as horses' collars, axes, and ships, are depicted in a way that shows a deep understanding of their use and importance. For example, the tapestry shows horses with collars, which were not depicted in earlier illustrations. This suggests that the creators of the tapestry were well versed in the everyday life of their time. If these objects were not accurate, the tapestry would lose its credibility as a historical document. The tapestry was likely created by skilled needleworkers who had a deep understanding of the objects they were depicting. Some argue that these needleworkers were men, as they would have had the technical knowledge to accurately represent male activities like warfare and sailing. The simplicity of the needlework suggests that the creators were experts in their field, and it would have been easier to teach a soldier or sailor to sew than to teach a non-expert to accurately depict technical objects. Modern viewers often expect the tapestry to include landscapes, but this is a modern expectation. For the people of 1066, landscapes were not necessary to tell the story. They were more interested in the action and the people involved. The occasional tree or building was enough to provide context. The tapestry's creators used these elements to clarify the story, not to create a realistic background. The battle scenes in the tapestry are often criticized for lacking detail, but this is a modern perspective. For the people of 1066, the focus was on bravery, leadership, and divine intervention, not on military tactics. The tapestry was meant to convey a sense of glory and righteousness, not to provide a detailed analysis of the battle. The victors of the battle used the tapestry to tell their version of the story, and this version emphasized their triumph and the justice of their cause. The Anglo-Saxon chronicles, which provide some of the only written records of the time, were written after the Norman Conquest. These chronicles were influenced by the Norman perspective, and often reflect the concerns and biases of the Norman rulers. The chroniclers, who were often monks, had limited knowledge of the outside world and relied on hearsay and local sources. This means that their accounts are not entirely reliable and may be influenced by the expectations and biases of their Norman overlords. To truly understand the Bayeux Tapestry, we need to view it from the perspective of the people who created and used it. We must recognize that their values and expectations were very different from ours. By doing so, we can gain a deeper appreciation of the tapestry and the world it represents. The tapestry is not just a historical document. It is a window into the minds and lives of the people of 1066. The Norman Conquest of 1066 was a profound upheaval that reshaped England's social, political, and cultural landscape. The English, once governed by a king advised by a council of nobles, found themselves under the rule of a single, unrestrained despot, William the Conqueror. William, with his Viking roots, imposed a new order that was more despotic and personal than the old system. This change was so radical that it erased the previous social hierarchy, leaving no trace of the old ways. The Bayeux Tapestry, a remarkable piece of embroidery, is often seen as a historical document. However, it is more accurately a piece of Norman propaganda, crafted to glorify their victory and the role of key figures like Bishop Odo. Odo, a man of both church and war, used the tapestry to assert his own importance and cunning. He is depicted as a mastermind who outwitted Harold, the clever and powerful English leader. The tapestry's detailed opening, which emphasizes King Edward's frailty and the need for a strong successor, serves to justify the Norman takeover and present it as a necessary and righteous act. Odo's influence is evident in the way the tapestry portrays the events leading up to the conquest. It is not a neutral history, but a narrative crafted to serve the victors. Odo in his armor is shown as a prominent figure, both a spiritual and military leader. This self-aggrandizement is a testament to his ambition, and the Viking tradition of boasting about one's achievements. The conquest brought more than just a new ruler. It introduced a new system of feudalism. Under William, the land was redistributed to a small group of Norman nobles, who in turn granted smaller portions to their followers. This system, formalized by the Domesday Book and the oath-taking at Salisbury in 1086, created a hierarchical structure where all land was ultimately held from the king. This was a significant departure from the previous, more decentralized system. The Norman Conquest also had a lasting impact on English society. The victors, seeing themselves as a superior race, rewrote history to justify their rule. The Saxons' English were often portrayed as incapable and inferior, a narrative that persisted for centuries. Even in the 19th and 20th centuries, the Norman Conquest was celebrated as the beginning of modern England, with the Normans seen as the bringers of civilization and order. However, this view is overly simplistic. The English were not militarily incompetent, and the conquest was not an easy victory. The Normans, despite their initial success, faced significant challenges in maintaining control. The English population, estimated to be between 1 and 2 million, could have mounted serious resistance, but they did not. This raises questions about the nature of the accommodation reached between the conquerors and the conquered. The years following the conquest were marked by complex dynamics, including tensions between different regions and the integration of Norman and English elites. The sudden increase in minor lordships in the 12th century suggests that not all landholders were dispossessed, and some may have found ways to coexist with the new order. Economics or wealth likely played a crucial role in this accommodation, as the Normans brought new opportunities and systems of land management. In conclusion, the Norman Conquest was a transformative event that reshaped England in profound ways. The Bayeux Tapestry, while a valuable source, is a piece of propaganda that reflects the victor's perspective. To truly understand the conquest, we must look beyond the simplistic narratives and consider the complex interplay of power, ambition, and accommodation that defined this period.